Welcome to The Truth Unplugged, the podcast where faith meets real life. I'm Nicole, here with Father Tim, our pastor, and Father Michael, our parochial vicar. Together, we're diving into your questions about Catholicism life and everything in between.
Whether you're a lifelong Catholic or just curious, this is a place for honest questions, relatable stories, and hopefully a laugh or two along the way.
So grab your coffee or keep both hands on the wheel, settle in, and let's tackle today's questions. Welcome to The Truth Unplugged.
Good morning or afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast. Welcome to The Truth Unplugged.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, guys.
So this week we've got my friend Father Jack Fitzpatrick here from, I think he's on a boat right now.
On a boat?
Well, while you're listening to this, he's on a boat. Right now, in this reality, he's next to me. Y'all have met him before when he comes to visit here. We were pals at the seminary, and so we enjoy visiting each other during the year. So he's here, and Father Jack only goes by Father Jack when he's here in Georgia. He normally goes by Father Fitz.
Really?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Father Fitz is my priest name.
Mm-hmm. And then
that I go by everywhere.
And then with your Marines, you were Cobra Padre, right?
Cobra Padre. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, he's here. He's going to help us answer some of these questions. Father Fitz is a very highly educated person. He spent almost as much time in the seminary as Father Michael did, and
but he learned a lot more.
Yeah,
and retained it.
So he went to the Catholic University of America, where he had to do these extra years of philosophy and fill his brain with all sorts of interesting knowledge. Fun fact, I actually tell people that all priests go to the Catholic University of America and get a PhL, a philosophy licentiate, but it's actually really this hard degree to get. So it's a fun little thing that I do to bother Father Fitzpatrick is, so yeah, all priests have got that PhL. It's no big deal. You know, it's just something we do.
What should we call you? Father Jack or Father Fitz?
Father Jack is fine. That's okay. What I go by.
Cobra Padre.
Cobra Padre is maybe the best nickname I've ever received in my life. I mean,
a legitimate nickname.
Let me explain that for a little bit. So I was with this Marine Artillery Battalion, 1st Battalion, 11th Marines, the best, certainly the best artillery battalion in the Marine Corps, probably in the entire U.S. military. But anyway, each unit has kind of like our parishes have patron saints. Marine units have kind of call signs, and ours is Cobra. So, the commanding officer is Cobra 6, and the sergeant major is Cobra 9, stuff like that. And the chaplain, I don't know, people kind of...
You don't get a number.
Yeah, exactly. There's no number. But anyway, it was decided that I should be called Cobra Padre. And I mean, how alpha is that? It's the coolest thing ever. It's hard to get civilians to call me that. It's like saying my name is Dragon. Anyway, with Father Tim, I'm Father Jack, because Father Tim's into the informality
Father first
thing.
name, yeah.
He's
I don't like that, and people are discovering that around here, and more and more people are starting to call me Father Revak.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I've said it. It goes back to your first assignment. It's difficult if the other priests in the first assignment are Father first name, and then you come in at 26 years old and you're like, I want to be Father last name. Just doesn't really stick.
I have a great aunt who's a religious sister. Well, she's dead now, but she was a religious sister at that time, and she went by Sister Fitz. So I thought, that's cool. Father Fitz. It's like
Sister Christian, Sister Fitz.
Exactly.
I can hear a song written about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty good. Funny thing about my great aunt, I won't say her name, but anyway, she was at one point she had tried to talk me out of going into the seminary. And she thought that I should, have a whole life first, and then anyway, it was a very strange conversation. But then my mom suggested that, the reason why Aunt Joanne, well, there it goes. Anyway, sorry. The reason, oops-a-daisy, sorry, Aunt Joanne, rest in peace. She's probably getting close to heaven by now. But anyway, the reason why she did not want me to go to the seminary, my mother said, was because I would outrank her then at family events. Because it was no, you can't. Well, it was always okay. Let's pray before Thanksgiving dinner. Aunt Joanne, go ahead and say the prayer. She would say the prayer, but then immediately upon ordination, it was okay. Let's pray. Oh, Father Jack, why don't you say the prayer? And I was just grinning like the Joker from year to year. Finally, my time had come.
You're flexing on your aunt.
I did. She died a year later. Yeah, she couldn't.
Probably from grief. You probably killed her.
I probably did. It was her time,
Okay.
Well, we're really glad you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about the cost of discipleship in the public life.
Yeah, we've got some good questions regarding just like how, based on some recent events. So we'll get into that. But Father Jack, or Father Fitz, whatever you want. If you might know him.
Cobra
Jack is
Padre.
just fine.
Cobra Padre.
Please don't call me. Now it feels infantilizing.
You might know him from, he did our Lenten mission last year. And he's not doing it this year, but he is back for a week. So
if you're from Dalton, you met him when he was there. If you're
from St. Joe's,
from St. Joe's in Athens, I don't know. We might have hit him a little bit more.
I feel like you talk about him constantly in your homilies. So if you've heard Father Tim say Jack,
I make up stories about him, and then
he loves you,
and then he takes my stories and embellishes them even more than I've embellished them.
That is the case. The great thing about having friends is their stories get to be your stories.
Yeah.
And it's the best when their stories are just not true.
Right.
Like
Father Michael told a funny joke at the end of Mass last weekend, and I just totally ripped it off and then took credit for it because, as I've said...
He sure did, in front of me.
Being a priest is 95% plagiarism, which actually is a really good intro into what we're going to talk about in this first question, because it's something that goes back a long time, has been talked about kind of again and again and again, this concept of how we love one another.
Let me just put two scriptures out there to contextualize this. The first is from the Ten Commandments: "Thou shalt not bear false witness." Right, and the second is anyone who loves father or mother, sister or brother more than me is unworthy of me. Right. This is Jesus is talking about the cost of discipleship.
All right. First question. As a Catholic, what are the guidelines on attending weddings, especially those of baptized Catholics getting married outside the church?
So Catholics who are baptized are bound to get married in the church because there's a form of how we get married, and a lot of Catholics are unaware of that, and they'll get married outside. Like it's become a trend to get married by your friend in a barn. Like your friend goes online and gets this certificate of ministry.
I would say in some circles. So I'm in the wedding industry. I would say it's more common to like want something where it's all in the same location. Like you can have your ceremony and your reception at the same place, and you don't have to, air quote, bother with going to a church.
And it's kind of because they're more interested in the
aesthetics.
Well,
and the party
afterwards.
Right,
yeah.
because
it's like where do we want to have the party, and can we fit the wedding in there? Like that's really kind of their priority.
And the wedding only takes like 5 minutes, right?
Right. Maybe 30 if you have a Christian couple sometimes. But I would say normally the ceremony of a non-Catholic is around 5 to 10 to maybe 15 minutes.
And the reason we have the form as Catholic Christians is because the church knows exactly what marriage is. And she needs to make sure that we know exactly what marriage is. Because if I say yes to something and you say yes to something and they're two different ideas, we're not actually making the thing happen. And so the church's form ensures that the people that are both saying I do are saying I do to the same thing, and that the wedding actually happens, the marriage actually happens.
Right. And we talked about that last week when we were talking about annulments.
Yeah. This is a question I just missed last week, so I thought we'll just wrap it up and bring it back for this one. But what's the answer here?
So should we, Father Tim, be able to go to Catholics getting married outside of the church?
No, if you know that somebody is Catholic and is getting married outside of the church, you shouldn't go to that wedding because they're not actually getting married. Which sounds really harsh, but it's the truth.
And if you know that you're going to that wedding to bear a witness to the joyful event that's happening, and you know that the event that's happening actually isn't really joyful, it's actually bad, to go there and to bear false to go there and to see it, to bear witness to it would be bearing false witness. That's actually one of the overt ways in this world that we can actually break that commandment of bearing false witness. The other way is like standing up in court and perjuring yourself. But when somebody asks you to come and bear witness to a thing, and the thing that's happening isn't actually happening, and you're there and you smile and you bear witness to it, man, you're breaking that commandment. And it doesn't matter who's getting married.
What if I'll play devil's advocate here?
You like to do that, don't you?
Yeah, that's my job.
You're the foil.
What if it's your child? What if it's your daughter, your sister-in-law? Like
that's the most difficult case when that happens. And a lot of times it seems like, well, something failed. My kid doesn't like the church because the church is mean, or the church says stuff that they don't agree with, and so they'll say, "Well, I'm not Catholic anymore. I've left religion. I don't want anything to do with religion." But as parents, you baptized your children. You promised to bring them up in the teachings of the church. That's a good thing.
But what I've heard this argument kind of firsthand. This is what is said. I don't believe this, but isn't it more important to maintain the relationship with your child than to argue about where a wedding
maybe we
be?
should ask Jesus Cristo what he thinks about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I wanted to contextualize this with that gospel. Anybody who loves father and mother more than me, we do not get to maintain human relationships as a primary thing. We maintain. Christ came to call us friends and to make us his friends, and anything that's going to get in the way of that is actually subordinate to that, and can't you can't do it. If it's going to break your relationship with Jesus, you can't do it. But that's a hard thing to think about. I was going to ask Father Jack if he had any advice for parents who are maybe faced, or brothers or sisters, I mean, or just friends.
Yeah.
That you're afraid of losing the relationship because they're going to do a thing that you can't follow them down that avenue, and if you do, you're wrong, right? So,
Father Michael, thank you for that. I think that an important thing to have in mind when having this conversation is what is marriage for in the Catholic Church? I think that's a really important thing. And when it comes down to it, there's all kinds of things to be said. But when it comes down to it, marriage is a man and a woman saying, "Hey, through me and through the natural issue of our union, the church will continue." That's what a marriage is saying. The church will continue through us, and our lives are now at the service of the church and the world. But I think probably a lot of people today, that's not what they're thinking about in terms of marriage. Marriage is whatever. It's a bunch of different things. Okay, we a lot of people are living together first. So what is marriage? Oh, it's the way that we make it legal. I've heard that a bunch of times.
Yeah, as if marriage fixes unchastity, right?
Right. Well, I mean, there's a certain. I mean, Augustine does. Well, anyway, but so a remedy for concupiscence. That's probably another podcast. But I will say this though, that if what we have in mind, for Christian marriage, the way we celebrate that in the church is two people committing that through their life the church is going to endure. Then we have to make distinctions between that kind of marriage and another kind of marriage, which is to say that, hey, as Catholics, this is the only kind of marriage we acknowledge. Two people who are accepting the responsibility of the church, essentially. That's what we're talking about. And, I've dealt with this in my own family, actually. Now, my little sister just got married in the church, really wonderful thing, a couple of months ago. But we've had other family members who have said, hey, we're going to get married and it's not going to be a Catholic ceremony. Can you do that for us? Can you be the priest? And, of course, I have to say no to that because... And here's why I think it's important that we get down to the truth about what a Christian marriage is, because people have the freedom to get married in whatever way they want to. You can get married because you're making a pre-existing marriage legal, quote unquote. You can get married because you think it's going to be a fun thing. You can get married, whatever. Adults have the freedom to do that. But in the Catholic Church, you get married because you're embracing a responsibility. And I think it's important to just have that conversation with people. Hey, what is it that you intend your marriage to be? Do you intend your marriage to be this fruitful thing for the church? Or do you have another goal in mind? And if you do, then do that, pursue that. But I think it's a really, really, really damaging thing to confuse the two and have, Catholic weddings in which the couples are not, on the mission.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we do all these backwards, and then all the conversations of, can you go to this wedding? Can you go to that wedding? What are you bearing witness to? Are you bearing false witness? All of that is based on this primary understanding of what marriage is for.
Yeah.
So see, that's the conversation we have to start having with people, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and that's a much more fundamental understanding of why the answer to the question, can I go to my son's wedding outside of the church, is no, is because your son is not, by virtue of him getting married as a Catholic, by virtue of him getting married outside of the church, he's not intending to do the thing that he's proposing to do, and for the right reasons. Even though his reasons aren't necessarily wrong, they're not the noble reasons of a Christian getting married. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I know a lot of people. This is why I wanted to talk about this in terms of the context of the cost of discipleship. This is like one of the real world, modern day, first world situations where there's a sense of martyrdom about this, because we are losing something. We're risking losing something for Christ. And we're celebrating today, when we're recording this, the Feast of St. Agatha, who is one of the first century Christian, early church anyways, Christian virgin martyrs, right? She was willing to give up everything because she loved Jesus singularly. She certainly loved him above everything else. And that's not something that Jesus calls St. Agnes to do. That's something Jesus calls every single person to do. That is, in the gospel, the cost of discipleship. And we have to say, hey, man, there are going to be times in my life where I'm put in a situation where I have to choose Jesus or something else, and the two don't go together. Yeah. I can't choose both.
Unfortunately, in this modern kind of false understanding of love, not really seeing love as sacrificial, this question comes up and we say, oh, well, I can't not go to the wedding because that'll offend the person, and I don't want to offend the person, as if that's the highest good, is not offending somebody, but rather doing the thing that is true, that is good. And we think, well, no, Jesus would rather me not offend somebody. Yeah. Jesus would rather me not upset somebody. Jesus would rather me not lose a friend. And, he'll understand. We try to rationalize things all the time and say, oh, God will understand. I know it's what he said and what he commanded and what his church teaches, but he'll understand if I do the opposite.
Well, it's almost like there's like this religion of nice,
right?
That permeates our culture. It's like
therapeutic deism what that's called.
Is that the name for it? That's so cool. All right,
I've never heard that.
Really? You've never heard that?
Did you come up with that?
Of course I did, based on our earlier conversation. Yeah.
For heaven's sakes, I get no credit for anything.
But it's just like, I should, like, being kind, being nice is the highest good. Not
right.
Like,
and that's what people, good people go to heaven. Well, what's a good person?
A good person.
I sound like Jordan Peterson now. What's a good person?
According to God, a good person who is somebody who loves him above all else and is willing to sacrifice everything in order to maintain that love. That's what a good person is.
I mean, this is a hard thing. This is a
hard saying. Who can accept it?
Yeah, this is like one of the
another
crosses
thing that Jesus says.
But like, one, if it's a friend that you don't know, you don't have to tell a friend that why you're not going to their wedding. You don't have to like call them and be like,
you just say, hey, I'm busy.
not going to your wedding because you're not getting, like, if you're worried about hurting someone's feelings in that situation, you don't have to come out and say, listen, this is why I'm not coming to your wedding. You can just decline the RSVP and not go. But like I would encourage parents to have that conversation with their child, because like, as hard as it is to say like, hey, you're doing something wrong, like maybe that conversation will lead them to like conversion, a conversion moment.
Because what are you risking? I mean,
eternity.
What you're risking by not saying something to them is for a very selfish reason. I don't want to risk my relationship with them because I love them. It's all about you, right?
Well,
but if you risk having that conversation with them, and maybe you just don't have that relationship with them because when you were raising them you weren't a Christian yourself, and now you are, and you've lost credibility, and it's hard for you to have that conversation. But if you love them, you're going to find some way to make sure that they know the gospel and that it's a beautiful and a good thing and it's the best thing for them, and you're going to help them as best you can at risk of that relationship for the love of God. So don't get discouraged. And I've had so many experiences in my life where I've told somebody something and I thought they were going to react one way and they reacted a completely different way.
Right.
Because the Holy Spirit is the one who's working in that person as well as in you. So don't fear to do what is right because you're afraid somebody's going to misunderstand or they're going to react a certain way. I'm telling you, you really have no control over that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're talking about weddings right now, but really what we're talking about is marriages. Yeah, that's an important thing too. Like, we're talking about, can I go to this particular marriage ceremony or not? And, no one really wants to go to weddings. Yeah, I mean, let's be real about that. I mean, well,
there are some people that like to go to weddings, actually.
I have learned that priests hate going to weddings.
That's because you're an excellent photographer for weddings and they pay you lots and lots of money.
I also just genuinely enjoy it, but that's fine.
I think do priests not generally enjoy weddings? True, but let's take that back. Men don't like going to weddings.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fair.
it's not
actually
about
universally
them.
fair.
Matrimony also, did you know this? You guys did. Matrimony means the gift of motherhood.
Really?
A little bit of Latin. Yeah. Mater and munus.
Again, that marriage is for children, right?
Right. Marriage is when a woman becomes a mother. Hopefully that happens at least 9 months after, but in theory, that's what we're talking about. Because, what the greatest thing that ever happens on this earth outside of the consecration of Mass is the conception and birthing and raising of children. I mean, that is the thing. But that's what we're talking about here, really. I mean, we're talking about, the wedding is what sets this marriage in motion. That's what does it. And I tell you what, guys, I mean, I work with broke down kids. Okay, that's why I work with the United States Marines. I'm getting ready to work with sailors. I assume that'll be worse. And out of all of these, 19-year-old, Marines that I'm working with, I bet you 85 or 90% of them don't have parents that are married still. I think so. And it is amazing the difference that makes. And what we're talking about here with weddings is what sets children up for success in the world. That in the Christian sense of marriage, we have this idea that husband and wife will be faithful to each other no matter what happens. I mean no matter what happens.
Yep.
Even something like infidelity, that's not a reason to get out of your marriage.
Or you become terminally ill, and now you're worried your spouse thinks you're a burden on, or that you're a burden on them.
And the reason why this is so important is because God is more faithful than even your parents are to you. Okay, God is more faithful than that. And if mom and dad can just pull up chalks and quit, maybe you believe that God will quit. This is so important. And we're talking about, Father Michael was talking about bearing false witness. I mean, in the case of weddings, we also have the opportunity to bear true witness to that, which is to say, and I'm not a parent of children, but people do tell me that I'm wrong all day long. So I feel like I do certainly have a sense of what that means to be. But I'll tell you this, though, that faced with a situation of, am I going to get married in the church or not? Like I had the opportunity to say this. Listen, marriage is, the way that we understand it as Christians, is a way that two people say, I love you more than anything else, and every day I'm going to wake up and be committed to you. And there's nothing that's going to change that. And we are going to teach children that this is the way. We're going to teach children that faithful love is the only thing in the world that matters. Nothing else matters.
And really, the family is kind of where you learn love.
That's right.
But that love directed towards God, that the whole family's love is directed towards God.
Right? Yeah, it's not an inward. It's not an inward love. It's not a loving for love's sake. It's showing sacrifice within a family, seeing mom and dad make sacrifices. I think last week we had the question: is it more important to put the couple first?
Yeah, to put
before
your
the
husband
kids.
wife first or your kids.
You put your relationship first because your kids see that and they learn what sacrificial love is. They learn how to direct their love toward God. And
then, in the face of somebody who says, "No, I'm going to have a civil ceremony in a barn, and we're going to have our reception afterwards, and it's going to be great and all that kind of stuff," I would say, okay. So, but are you not interested in the total, complete sacrificial love aspect of it? Because
it almost starts like by a Catholic has to you submit to the church with you sacrifice your dream wedding or whatever to get married in a church if that's not what you want.
Well, it's almost a post-Christian culture that has the idea of a dream wedding that's not in a church, right? I mean,
an American. Yeah,
it's
very American.
The idea of a wedding, which we say is sacred, not being done in a church, which is the sacred place, is a really post-Christian idea to begin with. And it goes to show that, as Father Jack so beautifully articulated, why wedding, why marry. We're not directing the whole reason for my existence, my spouse's, my marriage, and my family's existence towards living in the church and glorifying the Lord as our reason for being. I think when you want to have a wedding outside of the form of the church and outside of the church itself, you're really just testifying that you're missing the point. And maybe that's part of that is your formation from your parents. Maybe they didn't give it to you. Maybe the priest who was preparing you, if you even went to a priest that was preparing you, didn't do a good job of teaching that. There's a lot of reasons that aren't necessarily a person's fault, but it is the problem that they have to deal with. Right?
And I think it's important for any other people that are on the Catholic side of that to highlight the choice that they are making. I think that is the most important thing that you could do, whether it's from a pastoral perspective, from priests, or whether it's, the arguably more important, parental perspective for kids, which is to say, okay, this is the way your father and I have lived our lives. And this is the world that produced you. You came from the Christian world. And here's the life that you're proposing for yourself with this kind of wedding. I just want you to see how that's different from what we have. I think that's a very, very, very important thing, because I'm saying I as if I've actually taken the voice of the mom in this. I'm not sure why I did that.
I could have done that.
You could have done that.
I could have done that.
You would have done that better. But I get to say, hey, listen, this is what was important to, how important would that be for a father to say that to a son or daughter? Hey, this is the way that I have lived my life with your mother for you. This is the way that I've done that. And what you're saying right now, son of mine or daughter, maybe I would use different language if it were a son, the way that you're proposing to live your life now is different from what I have done. And I want you to know that you're proposing a different course.
I feel like parents have, this is a conversation for another time, but I feel like parents have really abdicated the role of being the voice of wisdom for their kids, and not only encouragement, but like expectation of demand. Like, hey, you're part of a family.
I think that depends.
I think
I don't know if you can like blanket statement
as a priest, I'm saying that from what I see in thousands of families.
Sure.
I see parents abdicating that familial tie, because we're talking about family ties, right? We're talking about a lateral tie right now between a husband and a wife. But husbands and wives don't just marry their spouse; they marry a family, and there's a lateral tie, but there's also an up and down tie. There's an up to the family, and there's a down to my proposed family of my children that I'm going to have, and the people above us. And we were talking about this the other day about how hard it is to find priest mentors who can be that generation above us, who help guide and lead and instruct and teach, and it's such a dangerous thing to abdicate that. So I would just encourage parents: don't be afraid to talk to your kids and tell them, this is the way. This is really what it is. This is what it is, and you need to really think hard before you give that up.
I guess another thing though too, Father Michael, I'm thinking of another problem that we have, which is this: that there are a lot of people. Yeah, no, there are. Yeah, there's a lot of, going back to your kind of parental abdication thing. There's a lot of parents right now that are saying, "Gosh, my kids are grown up and they're not going to church. My kids are grown up and they're not doing whatever. And they're getting married outside the church, whatever." And sometimes I think some significant reflection will reveal that, oh man, there is a lot of ways that we have not really carried the torch here on being the examples for how to be a grown-up Catholic.
Yeah, we see that here all the time with older couples, and they think, oh my gosh, something went wrong. We didn't do this. The church failed in some aspects too, and my kids don't practice the faith, and now I'm having this kind of reawakening. And it's very interesting to see the shift in the generations. Kind of, you go to the 40s, and that's the silent generation, I guess. They were parents then, and
in the 1940s, not like the 40-year-olds.
Yeah, 1940s.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you've got the parenting style, and it's different. And I see it all the time. You've got the parents that spanked their kids, and then now you've got the parents that don't spank their kids. They have conversations with their kids, and what's the right way to do it? Because so many now parents look and they say, well, I don't want my kids to have to struggle in the way that I did with whatever this was, so I change, and then it's this weird and parenting has got to be a difficult thing.
It is a difficult thing.
Just when going back, when people say, "Hey, Father, should I baptize my granddaughter in the bathtub because my kids aren't going to mass anymore?" And your heart really breaks for them because the chances are they are really struggling with a realization that they failed their children as Christian parents, because when they were their children's age, they also weren't being good Christians. And then later in life, they rediscovered their faith and they're on fire for it now. And they want anything to be able to go back and be the Christian that they are now back then for their kids. And it's a hard reality. I don't think we should shy away from that reality, but it's not a desperate reality. I think if you're willing to do the work of prayer and fasting and actually put your prayers where your mouth is now.
I was unaware that there was another way to pray.
With money.
With the words in your mouth.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But fasting is really the thing that most, I think people by and large forget about. And it's so powerful to fast.
Some demons can only be cast out by prayer and fasting.
Yeah. You know, if you're worried for your kids, if you're worried for your grandkids, and you recognize, man, maybe a big part of that is because I scandalized my children growing up. I didn't practice a Christian faith. I set a bad example, whatever it may be. Don't despair. The Lord is so good. He is so merciful and he's so powerful. If you show God how much you love your children by doing things, by praying, by fasting, maybe even by giving alms for the purpose of your children's conversion and the sanctity and the salvation of your grandchildren, God will respond to that, man.
You know, unpopular opinion here, and I realize that of the three of us priests in the room, I am the least a pastor of everybody. But I think that we really have to stop treating the sacraments, especially the initiation ones, like Catholic bar mitzvah. I really think we have to stop doing that, because we do this all the time. We have First Communion, and we have these kids that like you're never going to see again until confirmation time. And then confirmation is maybe the worst offense of all. Like,
because it's out of order.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem.
Well, yeah. as the most pastorally here, that's precisely why I walk into the confirmation class with the parents and I say, "Who are you people? Do you come to church? Why do you want your kids confirmed?" And a lot of times they don't have
Very
an answer.
pastoral.
Sometimes say, "Well, it's because my parents said we have to do it." Or for baptism, they'll come for baptism, and I'll say, "Do you go to church here?" No, not really. Why do you want to baptize your kids if you don't go to church?
I'm imagining you walking in there like the abominable snowman from Santa Claus is coming.
That's right. Town. Yeah, with my white cassock on to look like a snowman, and.
But it's, as long as we're doing this, we're sending the signal to people that, oh yeah, you can use the church for your life memory and for your photo album, but you don't need to be part of the church. You can use the church, and that maybe that's like too harsh of a way to say it. That's more of a Rivakian way to maybe say it, perhaps. But I do think though that
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do think that we have to start living the church the way that we're supposed to. Because right now there's so many mixed signals and mixed messages about what do you owe the church for the church to give to you what she wants to. Mm-hmm. And we really have to, I think, consolidate. And that's going to be painful for people. That's going to be a painful thing, I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. This is a good conversation.
Good conversation. Time to pivot.
And we meant to have a second part to this, like bearing witness in the public life. But we'll have to save that
But
for
the
our
other two
next
priests talk too much.
episode. No, it was
No,
good.
we developed
this time
it.
it
This
was
was a
good.
good conversation. This was a good.
The last time was terrible, but this time was good. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, here's the thing to all of you guys out there listening. Hopefully, you're listening because maybe you know us and you like us and you like to hear the conversations that we have off microphone, and that's why we're doing this. We're doing this to have a lot of conversations that we have day to day, day in and day out, just on the microphone for you guys to hear. So, and we're just having our conversations.
This is a little bit what it's like
Truth Unplugged.
for me to sit in Cheryl's office and Father Tim and Father Michael pull up a chair and we have a little discussion about something.
And it's hard sometimes to limit what you say. You gotta,
Might
you
be a
gotta
little
say
more
everything.
swearing, but by and large, it's the same thing.
Our favorite part of this podcast is rapid fire answers.
Is it really though?
It's kind of like
Do
a
we
running
have more?
bit at
Do
this
we have
point.
more rapid fire questions? I think the problem we have with the rapid fire questions is that the questions aren't rapid fire questions.
What's your favorite color?
They could be
Green.
They could be.
Yeah, blue.
Blue. All right.
Rapid fire.
Black.
That's not part of this. Okay, here we go. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Standing
Thanks. Are we allowed to offer a mass attention for children? Should we do it?
by. Yes.
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 Sure. if
For
you
your
want.
own children? Why not? Are we allowed to offer a mass intention for non-Catholics?
Sure.
Yes, sure.
Should we?
Grace is for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, great. The garden. Okay, next question. In the Garden of Eden, did asparagus make Adam's pee smell funny, or is that a consequence of the fall?
Yes, everyone enjoys that.
Probably before the fall, you didn't pee.
No,
Really?
of course
No.
you did.
No,
Why would
I
you
don't know.
not?
No, that's a natural function. That is 100% you did.
That is a hot take
And why would you?
on
why
original
would you,
justice.
Why would you want to take that away from somebody? It's a great part of the day, right?
Why? I don't think your pee smelling bad is like a sin.
Oh, that's
No.
I don't know.
It's
No,
like
absolutely not.
Maybe
I
in
feel
the-
like
maybe in
God
the
made
garden-
a funny vegetable that He said this will be hilarious.
Pee always smells like something, and it always smells like something relative to what you've eaten. The fact that
So maybe
asparagus has a
didn't
louder
exist.
voice.
Maybe asparagus is a result of the fall. Then.
You would say all vegetables are.
Yeah, I would.
A result of the
Yeah,
fall.
I want to go back to the Garden of Eden where you can just pick up the pig and take a bite out of
you
his
do
side and
realize in the
bacon
Garden
falls
of Eden
out.
they were all vegetarian, right?
You think that's
would
how the
not
Garden
you would
of
not have
Eden works?
existed in original justice because you would have had to have been a vegetarian.
I want to let you guys know that if I had just happened upon a group of Lance Corporals of Marines having a conversation, it might have sounded just like this. With some more profanity involved.
I hope that answers your question, Adrian from Ackworth. Okay,
That's
next.
Nicole's husband. He's weird.
He's not weird.
That was a good question, though.
He had a follow-up question of did we have belly buttons before? Did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? And I was like,
Oh, there's a book that's
Yeah, there
titled
is
that.
There
Yeah.
is. It's an apologetics book. I think it's like 101 weird questions, and one of them is, did Adam and Eve have a belly button?
I read it. Yep. I think the answer was yes. All right, next
How
one.
did they know that?
Went back and
I don't remember.
I don't
back
think
in
there's
time.
any way
Hopefully.
we could know that.
Next question. Maria from Ecuador. She's listening from Ecuador.
International podcast.
Yeah,
here,
international.
do we need
podcast.
to hablar de español for Maria? Hola Maria. Gracias por
no.
escucharnos.
You know, Ecuador
Maria
is where they make
In
Panama
the
hats.
su
That's true.
pregunta
Yeah.
Not in Panama.
English.
Yeah, Monte
So-
Cristi, Ecuador.
Yeah.
I've got a few from
All right.
there.
Maria wants to know, how do you guys feel when someone invites you over for lunch or dinner or cooks a meal and takes it to you?
Sometimes great anxiety, sometimes great joy. This is Truth Unplugged.
So, Maria, I personally feel great about it because I'm not as picky as other priests.
Right,
in
I'm a
this
very
room.
picky eater, and then also sometimes, or like if people bring me food, I've talked about it before. People bring me like a leftover casserole.
So I think
Like, no,
leftovers
we
is
don't-
weird.
yeah.
But like personally cooking you a meal, like they thought,
yeah,
they were
no,
like,
that
you know
that
what?
is certainly a way to show that they love their priest.
Yeah.
I have this thing that I need to know what your house smells like before I eat anything that you made me.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes
Will there be dog hair in the food?
will there be dog hair? Will there be like press on nails in there?
Sorry, sir. The Band-Aid was holding the fingernail on.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's just like, and I don't know why it is that I'm worried about this, but wouldn't you be? Listeners, aren't you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to not have
Well,
that?
because we're talking about a field of thousands of people that could possibly be like
Right.
inviting you over
Yeah.
or making you food. We had this bread in the vestry today. Couple loaves of bread. They looked delicious, but I had no idea where they came from. So I was like, I'm not going to eat that. They looked absolutely.
No, that's safe. That's good. We
It
need
is?
to take that up to the rectory.
Okay.
Already
Our
did.
Father
I
Fitz
ate some
took it
with
up
eggs
already.
for breakfast.
He
No,
was our-
delicious.
Did
he
you
was
have
our-
the
he was our taster.
like
He
the
was our
bacon
poison taster.
jalapeno sourdough? That one's good.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you know who you are. You're always allowed to bring us baked goods.
Yeah, but anyways, that the point is like I just didn't know where it came from, so I was like, I don't know. People have good intent. People have malicious intentions, but even people with good intentions, maybe they just don't know how to cook.
You know, another thing is, people generally speaking want to make Father the best thing that
Yeah.
they have.
The least healthy.
The least healthy
Yeah.
thing. So now all of a sudden, here's like all this like incredibly rich, high calorie food. That's like, how fat do you want me to be? You know, I can't keep doing that.
Those Mexicanos, when they invite me over, sometimes I see all the food on the table and think, oh, wow, that looks like a sufficient amount of food for everybody. No, that's my table.
Oh,
I sit down
wow.
at that table and they watch me eat, and I'm like, I can't eat 27 tacos. I'm going to explode. And they're like, oh, but we love you and we want to watch you eat. And it makes me feel really awkward.
Are they also filming it and putting it on the internet?
I don't know.
The other issue of going to people's houses is the potential for ambush.
Oh, yeah, the ambush.
Father
Michael hates
if
the
you
ambush.
want to guarantee
What's
that
the
I would
ambush?
never come over to your house again, you ambush me at dinner. Ambush is this, Father. Steve and I would love to have you over for dinner. Okay, great. Let's put that on the calendar a week from now. We've got it on the calendar a week from now. I'm going to make this food. It's going to be great. Wonderful. I show up and there's 6 cars in the driveway.
wow.
And Steve and Maria or whoever has invited, all their friends over and they're going to have a dinner party. when I will go in there in my head thinking I'm going to have dinner with Steve and Maria. And
so
now
it turns into a group thing.
Yeah, and I didn't agree to have dinner with all these other people.
Sure.
And it'd be one thing if you said we're going to maybe invite a few other people over, to which I would probably say, okay,
Who?
well, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say either
I need to know
who, or
who.
I'd say, okay, well, we won't do dinner. Because I mean, that's that. So not having the control over that. I actually in Athens we were invited over to a place for dinner.
Oh, this was a double bad.
Yeah, there were all kinds of problems with this meal. But anyway, so Father Paul and Father Tim and I were driving over to the house, and we're driving down the road that the house is on, and I start seeing all these cars, and I'm like, that can't. It's not.
It's an ambush.
It is. It's an ambush, and I just drove straight past the house, and I was just going to go home. And Father Paul and Father Tim were both like, you can't do that. You have to go home. But I do hate the ambush.
Yeah, and then that dinner, we waited for like 2 hours while the dinner cooked.
Oh.
You know,
Oh, that's like The Office. That's like the dinner party in The Office.
If you say come over at 6, yeah, I expect maybe like 15 to 30 minutes of socialization and
Socializing.
Yeah, but
You have not been social. You've not been socialized.
What
I
if
do
you're-
appreciate
what if two priests-
people making a meal?
what if 2 priests text you on a Friday morning and say, "Hey, would you like to come over for dinner tonight?"
I would say
With your
has
husband and
house
your 2
cleaner
daughters?
come, because there might be cat hair all over your entire house.
There is no cat
and
hair.
then my children might have an allergic reaction from it and throw up the next day.
That would never happen.
Never. Okay, let's go. Let's wrap it up. Let's do our one thing. So, Father Jack, what's your one thing?
My one thing is the prison diary of George Cardinal Pell.
Wow.
I've recently been reading, because the Marine Corps is a lot like a kind of a minimum security prison in many ways. Sometimes it's maximum, depending. But anyway, I've been reading the prison journal of this Australian bishop named Cardinal Pell. And it's a really, really, really good book. He talks about what it was like to be unjustly imprisoned and just about his whole life in service of the church. Highly recommend.
Sounds
Cardinal
cool. What's
where?
it called?
Prison. I
Or
think
what
it's
is it
Prison
called?
Journal. Is it Prison Journal?
Yeah, something
It'll be
like-
linked in,
yeah,
the,
just
in the
yeah.
description
Well, I
below.
need to know what it's called. To
You
link
just-
it.
Hey, we'll
You-
work
you'll
it out
Google it.
after
It's
the
fine.
fact. Come on now. The people don't want to hear
I think
this.
it's called Prison Journal. It's 3 volumes.
So my one thing this week is there's this World War II video game series called Sniper Elite, and a new one came out, Sniper Elite Resistance. The only thing I didn't like about it is that you had to play as an Englishman instead of as an American. But I guess it's better than playing as a Frenchman.
You're still killing Nazis, though.
yeah,
right?
you're still killing Nazis. So, yeah, it's fun.
All right, Father Michael.
So I discovered this ramen from Korea, and it's called Jin Ramen, and there's a not spicy and a spicy version. And I watched a YouTube video watching a bunch of Korean and Vietnamese chefs talk about their favorite instant ramen, because sometimes you're in a hurry and you want to make a quick soup or a quick something to eat. And I like ramen. So so this was by far their favorite. So I ordered a couple packs of it, tried it. It was delicious. Father Tim suggested slicing up some chicken real thin and dropping it into the boiling water so it cooked at the same rate as the soup did. So now you've got chicken ramen, and it was awesome.
Great. My one thing is also a food thing. There's this creator called Stealth Health on Instagram, and he makes high protein, low calorie food, and it's amazing. We had a high protein, like it had 52 grams of protein per serving for lasagna, and it was excellent. So we'll link that in the show notes if you're interested. Thanks for listening. We're glad you're here. That's it for this episode of The Truth Unplugged. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and maybe laughed or, found something for your journey. If you've got questions, we'd love to hear them. Send them our way via email at podcast@stclaircc.org or text us at the link in the show notes. And we'll probably answer them in an upcoming episode.
Don't forget to subscribe and share our podcast. Give it a 5-star rating. Hit the bell. Send a friend. Whatever you need to.
Ring that bell. Until
Ring
next
that bell.
time, we look forward to seeing you. Please pray for your U.S. Marines and the sailors in the Navy and all the troops and their chaplains that serve them.
Thanks for being here with us, Father Jim.
Cobra Padre.
Thanks for having me.
Adios, Cobra Padre.
All right. Bye.